Hi, I am Hoang, and today we will present our group assignment, Risk and Return. The purpose is to find the optimal portfolio with enough diversity as well as minimize unsystematic risk while maximizing returns. The data we collected from domestic and foreign stock websites as well as stock databases from period 2020 to 2022. Here's our table content. We have introduction, result and discussions, investment weight, and optimal portfolio. First is Vietnam Ho Chi Minh Stock Index (VNI). VNI is a market index showing the price movement of stocks currently traded on the Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange. The VN index hit the lowest point of 662.53 points at the end of the first quarter of 2020. It reaches its first highest peak at 1,504 points on January 2nd, 2022, then dropped until now. Next is Sonadesi Choduk Shareholding Company. The business line is industrial park infrastructure development and businesses. In December 2014, the company made a private placement of shares to increase the company's charter capital from 700 billion Vietnam dongs to 1,000 billion Vietnam dong. In 2021, Sonadesi Corporation holds the highest percentage of ownership of 47%. Next is other investors owning 43%, and finally, Sonadesi Longtan owns 10% of the company. Here is a table that demonstrates the financial performance of the company in 2022 and back to 2020. In general, the growth of the company is a stable and developing level. Total revenue witnessed a strong year-over-year increase from 432,000 in 2020 to approximately 859,000 million Vietnam dongs in 2022, with the strongest growth in the period from 2020 to 2021. Next, we have Hoa Group Joint Stock Company (HSG). Hoa Group Joint Stock Company is mainly in manufacturing, primary steel manufacturing, and steel product manufacturing from purchased steel. The history begins in August 8, 2001. They was established with an initial charter capital of 30 billion Vietnam dong and 22 employees. In November 2006, establishing Hoa Steel Sheet Joint Stock Company with charter capital of 320 billion Vietnam dong. And in 27th July 2021, the company's charter capital is 4,934 billion Vietnam dong. In September 2021, HSG ownership structure, domestic shareholder account for 74.8%, the major shareholders account for 17.22%, and the foreign shareholders account for the remaining 8%. Its three largest shareholders are Mr. Lê Phước Vũ with 101 million shares, Hoa Sen Holding Groups with 19 million shares, and Vang Ek Associates Corporation with 7 million shares. Here is the financial performance of Hoa Shan Group. Overall, for the last 3 years, the total revenue and operating cash flow has been continuously growing. Hoa Shan Group witnessed a deep decline for all of these categories except for total revenue and operating cash flow in 2022. Next, we have Vingroup Joint Stock Company (VIC). Vingroup was founded in Ukraine in 1993 by Mr. Phạm Nhật Vượng. In 2000 to 2007, the company began operations in Vietnam and was listed on the Ho Chi Minh City Stock Exchange. And in 2010, Vingroup sold its Ukraine operation to Nestle for $150 million. And now they mainly operate in Vietnam. About Vingroup, Ownership structure. On December 31st, 2022, foreign holdings account for 12.18%, the state holding accounts for 0%, and other entities account for the remaining 87.82%. Here's the financial performance of Bing Group. They fall dramatically in the net income and operating cash flow in 2021 due to COVID-19, and in 2022, operation and the total revenue has remained the same. Next, we have Mobile World Investment Corporation, WYG. From March to October 2024, the business revamps its operating strategy and purchased a sizable retail space in Nguyễn Đình Chiểu Road. And in March 2018, Mobile World acquired 40% of the capital of Phúc An Khang pharmaceutical chain. Here's MWG ownership structure. The internal staff owned 8.69% of the company. Major shareholders accounted for 36.98% of the company, and others' ownership accounted for 50.36% of the company. The founding shareholders held 3.94% in the company. The largest shareholders are Retail World Investment Consultant at 10.48%, Arisac Asia Consumer Funds of 7.909%, and Nguyễn Đức Tài of 2.4%. During the period, MWG has witnessed an increase in total revenue from 2020 to 2022. However, the net income has decreased in 2022 as well as total assets. Operating cash flow significantly decreased in 2021, and ROE and ROA, despite some fluctuations, decreased at the end of the period. And finally, we have Vietnam Dairy Products Joint Stock Company, VNM. They are a dairy product and juice manufacturing company. They was founded on August 20, 1976, with the acquisition of three milk plants, Thống Nhất Dairy Factory, Trường Thọ Dairy Factory, and Địa Lạt Powered Milk Factory. The ownership by geography, we have 55.6% are foreign investors, and the remaining 44.35% are local investors. Sorted by type, we have 93.4% are institutional investors and 6.6% are retail investors. Overall, for the past 3 years, total revenue of Vinamilk has fluctuated minorly. However, there is a slight decrease in net income in 2020 and compared to 2022. There is also a decrease in trailing EPS and the percentage of return on assets and return on equity.
Now I will talk about the annual average return rate of markets between the 2020 to the 2022. The percentage of annual average return of VN Index is 1.35%. In 2020, the Vietnam stock market is assessed as one of the 10 stock markets in the world. At the beginning of 2020 to the end of 2021, the VN Index increased up to 2.3 times higher than the rate of the US stock index, up to only 2.04 times. In 2021, despite being affected by COVID-19 pandemic, Vietnam stock market achieved in impressive results, attracting the attention of domestic and foreign investors. On November 2021, VN Index reached the highest level in 21 years of operations. Positive increase in annual average return of markets over the portfolios with market return about 31% and 35% respectively. By the end of 2022, the VN index has evaluated a progress 522 points. Next, I will talk about the stock of SHS. SHS recorded a growth 24% increase in the annual average return, which the big an- annual average return rate over the period at 77.62%. It's because the foreign investors are sitting for the nation with the cheaper labor costs, advantageous regulation to stimulate their investment, and available plan to recognize their factory. As a result of China's become the world's second largest economy. In 2022, SH's average return series dropped from its peak at 77.62% to minus 94% due to the negative dynamics of markets, plus the problem coming from the company delayed profits. The confidence of stock investor profits Charlie. The stock, the annual average return rates of VICs and MWGs show the same trend. About the MWG from 2020 to 2021, MWGs have the annual average return rate from approximately 3% to 54%. This it become the strongest growth. However, it experienced a sharp decline in 2022. It not only interrupted the supply chain but also made commodities and products transportation exceedingly difficult. Another big cause of lack of labor owed to the pandemic and workers they have to come home to care for their families. The 2020 to 2022, the VIC return rate in growing from -6% to -1%. In the 2022, VIC stock rate declined the lowest point at -58% at the end of period. Eventually, manufacturers caused an investment to have negative rate of return. For instance, poor performance by the company or any factors of entire economy. HSCs have recorded their return rate fell of 42.42%, despite their return rate significantly decreased. HSC stock price reported an all-time peak at the end of 2021. The rapid decline of the economy stock price in the recent year, down about -100% at the end of period. It is because the conflicts between the Iranians and Russia, causing an ongoing energy crisis around the world, directly affect the price of coal, one of the main raw materials for production of iron and steel. The annual average return of wheat and the annual average grade observes a reduction of about 26% at first half of periods. At the end of period, the VNM return rate increased to minus 7.65%, mostly because the return of foreign investors. In 2020, the average annual return of portfolios is quite high at 32% compared to the market average, 13%. In the 2021, the portfolio's average returns were 2.45% higher than previous year, reaching a three-year high of 35% in 2022, have a lowest annual average return for all stocks in the period, with a portfolio average return as minus 61, 1.5 times lower than the market.
Okay, to further understand the nature of the five stocks, we have to analyze the portfolio of total risk. First, let's take a look at the market standard variance throughout the period. The total risk of the market fluctuates over the years with the lowest standard deviation in 2021 at 21.50% and the highest in 2022 at 24.8%. And over a 3-year period, the stock in the portfolio are all riskier than the market, which you can clearly see based on the table above. So, to further understand the nature of the five stocks, we have to analyze the portfolio total risk. First, let's take a look at the market standard variance throughout the period. The total risk of the market fluctuates over the year with the lowest standard deviation in 2021 at 21.15% and the highest in 2022 at 24.8%. So over a 3-year period, the stock in the portfolio are all riskier than the market, which you can clearly see on the table above. So now let's take a closer look into each stock and its overall standard variance over the years. In 2020, in 2020, Vinamilk had a standard deviation of 13.18%, the lowest in the portfolio. VIC also landed in second place with a standard deviation of 32.42%. HSG, however, is the was the highest grade had was the highest risk stocks with a standard deviation of 51.10%. The explanation for this situation is windmill produce essential product and they had a huge capital investment as well as factories and storage and warehouse. So they despite in spite of also being affected with the pandemic, windmill still had the lowest. Windmill also windmill has the lowest risk in the portfolio. Next year, however, recorded some change, with Vietnamese still remains safer in the portfolio at 23.3%, and both CGC SCG. Finally, is the portfolio overall performance. The standard deviation experienced a marginal fluctuation from 2020 to 2022, when the data declined from 1.81% to 1.57% within 1 year, then climbed up after that. Meanwhile, the daily standard deviation of the portfolio in 2022 was the highest at 2.02%. The portfolio has a overall lower risk while maintaining a higher rate of return, 1.46 times higher than the market. It is suitable for investors who are willing to accept a certain amount of risk in order to improve on the return on investment.
According to the beta analysis in 2020, it is noticeable that HSG stock had the highest data throughout the survey, with the value of 1.34, while SSC and MWG stock only stood at approximately 1.16 and 1.27 respectively. Meanwhile, the VSC stock has a beta coefficient of 0.98 below 1, which indicates that it is 2% less volatile than the market as a whole and moves more slowly. To be more specific, if the volatility of the stock price is lower than the market volatility, the stock is less erratic than the market, thereby reducing the risk of the investment portfolio. Hence, Vietnamese can have a lower systematic risk and a smaller potential return, with the beta value of 0.86. Within 1 year, MWG witnessed a considerable fluctuation when it declined to 0.9, while the other stock remained unchanged or slightly changed around 0.1. It can be seen that Vinamilk stock also had a downward trend, reduced by the value of 0.14, while VIC and SHG data climbed marginally to 1.22 and 1.35 respectively. In 2022, all stocks experienced lots of fluctuation. Since the economic state started to be back to normal, SSC stock dramatically ascended from 1.22 to 1.72, hitting the highest point compared to the other stock at the same time. A glance at the graph A glance at the chart also reveals that the beta value of HSG stock climbed substantially by 0.27, while MWG data underwent a decrease by the value of 0.47. In contrast to SZC, Vinamilk, and VIC are considered low-risk stocks since the beta coefficient is lower than the market beta each year. Last year, the beta coefficient figure were around 0.5 um, and 0.56. The situation means that these two companies are less volatile than the market and why they may not offer high expected return. As ZC, it provides investors with a more stable investment option. As a result, Vinamilk's lower risk profile may make it more appealing to risk-averse investors searching for a safer investment opportunity. Conversely, individuals prepared to take on more risk may find SSC and HSG to be a more attractive investment option due to their greater expected return despite their high-risk status. According to the stock beta value of 1.12, which is bigger than 1, indicate that stocks are 12 more volatile than the market portfolio. The stock's price fluctuation in 2020 were fairly comparable to those of the market. The stock price fluctuation were less volatile than those of the market in 20 and 21, as seen by the beta decrease to 1.03 in that year. Within 1 year later, the beta coefficient decreased by 0.12, showing that the stock price fluctuation were slightly more erratic than those of the market. In conclusion, the beta coefficient has usually shifted throughout the past year, but it still remains pretty close to 1.
So now I will present the optimal investment way. As you can see that its stock share price fluctuated and varied over the period, changing both the weight of the portfolio and the share value. And at first glance, you can see that the Vinamilk weight witnessed a considerable growth when increasing from 10.38% to 15.61% within 1 year. Meanwhile, Sonadays Choduk and Mobile World Group Way experienced a modest upward trend to 23.03% and 26.10% respectively. And beside that, it is clearly presented that Housing Group Way sharply declined by 13.46%, while Vin Group still remained the same at around 12.33%. By looking at the table, the volatile values allocated mostly in the way of Housing Group and Mobile World Group. So this way will be used for the upcoming portfolio analysis in the 3 year. Now I will turn to the next part, which is optimal portfolio. So the pie chart illustrates the optimal portfolio weight measurement of 5 different stocks. And overall, the portfolio is heavily skewed toward the Vinamilk um, with Vingroup being the next largest holding, while Sonadays, Choduk, and Housing Group make a very small portions of the portfolio. Mobile World Group hold a relatively modest share, and among 5 different stocks, Vinamilk has the highest percentage in the portfolio with 53.35%, while Sonadays, Choduk, and Housing Group Housing Group account for the lowest percentage with 1.47% and 1.96% respectively, and therefore Sonadays, Choduk, and Housing Group
will have stable and low risk exposure as the percentage of both stock are remaining low in the 3-year average. And additionally, the largest percentage of the Vinamilk is held by Vingroup, which comprise 31.25% of the portfolio, and Mobile World Group make up the remaining 11.97%. So, in summary, the pie chart vary with important data of optimal weight measurements, which allow the investor to make a right decision in investing stock depending on the risk rate. So that is the end of my group presentation. So thank you for listening.